and they all greatly compromise the psycho-mental, emotional, and bioelectric interface in our bodies. And this has adversely affected our attention span. And this is really important. Our ability to be aware, to have clarity, our boundaries, and our psycho-emotional, psycho-mental boundaries, and our decision-making process. Why? When you're picking up more information in your brain can actually process, you get information overload just like a computer. And what happens with the computer screen is it freezes. Well, many times we freeze and we get into that dead zone. And the reason is we are picking up many more stimuli, or those stimuli activate these processes, and we cannot actually match the speeds to the extent where the average attention span around 30 years ago was 1.5 minutes, and now it's reduced to around 4 seconds. And that of a goldfish is around 8 seconds. So our natural cognitive rhythms have been violated, and media with the misinformation and disinformation equals this cancellation, the info noise. So your conscious mind switches off because firstly we satisfy your left brain with information and data. Secondly, we satisfy your feelings with the story, and you think, okay, I'm now flowing with this. I've brought into this story. And finally, anybody can broadcast information that very easily gets stored in your subconscious. So finally, in addition, we have a very strong interference in our circadian cycles. They change every 3 hours, and there's 3/8 of 24 hours per day, representing very strong and specific hormonal, electrical, and neurological shifts in the body. All of these are being influenced greatly by the system that we have set up around us. Now, introducing the Ministry of Natural Law, it's a transformative global initiative establishing a non-violent green economy based on custodian governance. It means integrating the green technologies which incorporate green nanotech, quantum supercomputing, artificial intelligence, aerospace, the chips, the data centers, the algorithms and clouds. We need to go from cradle to rebirth, understanding that we can actually reconstruct, taking away, for example, instead of using electrons over copper on the silicon chips, we can replace that with light over graphene, monatomic graphene, which is far quicker, far more storage, and a lot less resistance, meaning a lot less energy needs to be utilized. So the core principle here is to have a decentralized, blockchain-based system for transparency and self-sovereignty of every person within the society. The goal is to unify health, education, technology, finance, ecology, and law, security as well, under a framework of natural law. Physiconomy comes from 2 words. Physis means nature, and nomos means law. Natural law, we're going to look at it in a different context of the way in which it has been defined until now. So let's just look at the first pillar. A truly green economy means algorithms, cloud infrastructure, chips, and so forth are designed for energy efficiency and fully recyclable. So recyclability is very, very important. That should be, so by 2030, we said 13 to 14% of our energy resources will be needed to power technical needs, and then the greatest contributor will be data centers, IT, and of course, artificial intelligence. So data-driven and tech-enabled. We need to have technology not just for extraction, but for regeneration. This is critical to understand. The green and sustainable computing. We need to democratize artificial intelligence while reducing its environmental footprint. And this means empowering anyone to build intelligent systems without needing to learn complex mathematics and coding. Until now, it takes 3 to 5 years to learn complex mathematics and coding to be a programmer of artificial intelligence. We had a system where we had produced or created an operating system where you can learn how to utilize the operating system in 6 weeks and spend the rest of your time, 36 weeks approximately, in learning a course that you actually can design. And this is very important. Select an area, we have 30 so far, and over 105 modules. And then you can, for example, law, you can add finance, trading, you can add fashion to it, you can add health to it. They are different modules that take 6 weeks, 36 to 72 hours to learn. The quantum manufacturing and photonic chips. So, as I mentioned, using light over graphene is one example. It has been developed already in its prototype stage by a laboratory in Canada, and they are looking at doing that in other countries as well. So, we're looking at drastic reduction in global CO2 emissions as well as from computing. So, managing billions of transistors with minimal energy, replacing transistors with light is one example, because every single artificial intelligence calculation is literally billions of on-off switching of transistors. And then custodian governance. Governance by natural law, democratizing artificial intelligence creation while reducing its environmental footprint. So we're moving from ownership of what we think we own to custodianship, where we are carers of nature, of our resources, of our communities, of our environment, of our planet. So decentralization, a blockchain-based system ensures trust and equity. Self-sovereignty is about individuals owning their own data, their own identity, and their own creations. Being responsible and equitable within trade and governance, designed to be non-violent and fair for all participants. And finally, custodians are not owners. We are permanent stewards of the planet's resources. Instead of thinking about how we can extract resources that are not easily or readily replenishable, we need to understand how we need to take care of what we do have and not indulge in excess for the purpose of trying to increase our economy based on resources that have been actually stolen from host countries. Just to say here, between 5 countries of Europe, that includes Portugal, Spain, France, the UK, and Holland, they had over 300 colonies around the world. They influenced many countries. So that is how they build their resources, but that's an old order mode of operating, which, as a result of technology, and through the United States in particular, they've influenced practically the entire planet through tech, and we have a very different infrastructure and geopolitical situation. The Chinese saw this from about 45, 50 years ago, hence when Nixon went to China and signed their first agreement, opening doors and allowing American products to be produced in China. They clearly understood that resources for producing anything to do with mass production, but in particular IT, was the way forward. So instead of using weapons of any kind of destruction, they just went in and purchased. And of course, they didn't necessarily need to put a gun to anyone's head. It was a fair deal going to various countries and saying, your infrastructure will assist you with it, we'll put the money in and we'll extract this in return. So there are many interesting parallels between China and the way it developed and the way the United States of America has conducted its modes of operating. The core principles are self-organization, really there. Physiconomy means self-generating, self-sustaining, and self-managing, based on a principle of self-organization. Albert Cinturic won a Nobel Prize. He's a Hungarian scientist for working out that water, the water molecule in its different forms, self-organizes. Now, we are made 70% by volume and 99% molecularly of water. Our body knows how to self-organize because of this fundamental factor. Water is the third most abundant substance in the entire universe. First is hydrogen, then helium, then water. And with scientific colleagues of mine, one in particular from Lomonosov University in Russia, we presented a paper on water and consciousness, to the extent where we said without the presence of water, you would not be able to identify with or experience consciousness. So our organism already knows how to self-organize and co-work with itself. we have lost connection with ourselves in this manner. We need to learn how to go back to our tradition of meditation and introspection and go on a journey to understand the relationship between your thoughts, your feelings, the physical body through the senses, your body electric, and your consciousness. Our conscious mind, it is our conscious mind, unfortunately, that does interfere with natural processes that leads to inner disputes, conflict, and chaos. We're picking up around 20 million stimuli per second from our external environment, and our conscious mind is a very powerful filter. It only basically allows for around 40 of those stimuli to be recorded. So it's a very powerful filter based on survival, because if you took away that filter with something like LSD, for example, a psychotropic substance, you would start seeing many more things that you were either not aware of or your brain could not process within that one moment. So it puts you into a psychotic state fundamentally. So the foundation of violence is the inability to actually listen to and feel and hear yourself, because the dispute gets set up between the disorganization of our mental faculty, our feelings, our senses, our physical body. They all represent, in the eyes and ears of yourselves, they all represent very key information data points. And we need to find a way to broker that. So fundamentally, the unified framework, we need equitable, non-violent finance, regenerative and sustainable ecology, empowering and democratized education, transparent and natural rights based on the law that we have, more transparent and natural law-based laws, and custodian resilience. Finally, just to say, from a violent, what I call extraction-based economy, to a non-violent custodian-based economy. I invite people to consider becoming a custodian of another, championing the green technology, and then demand governance based on natural law back to the way in which your organism and your matrix was designed by the great architect in the cosmos. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Constellium, for reading. We have given us great new ideas, green energy, physiconomy,
I don't know, you happy? We're working on this. By the way, we inaugurated this in Delhi on Mahatma Gandhi's birthday at the India Habitat Center. I had ministers there, I had spiritual representatives, I had scientists, researchers, economists, former head of national security for the United States of America, Rama Sharpa, His Eminence, all sorts of people. It was a very powerful event, but it was, the ball is rolling.
Thank you, Dr. Paradis. I don't know whether we have a few minutes for discussion. Between you, maybe Dr. Cherry, please come forward. Dr. Paradis, would you come down and sit here?
Yes.
Yes. We will have a very brief time for these questions or comments. The floor is open.